Okay, it's on and we're recording to the cloud.
And you still have to wait about 6 minutes. We usually give everybody 3 or 4 minutes to get on.
Yeah, no sweat. Yep, no problem. Now, are you back east or out here in Arizona? Where you be?
I'm in Arizona till Friday morning.
Of course.
I know. It's
But she was with me for lunch yesterday.
yeah,
Oh,
it was
of course.
I landed in Flagstaff at midnight and I leave at 5 a.m. Friday to go back east. It's all good
So
though.
Beth, do you fly in and out of Flagstaff instead of Sky Harbor? Oh, wow.
I did last night. If it's just me, I do Flagstaff. If Joe and I are on together, then we these Joe. Just quiet down for just a minute. I fly in and out of Flagstaff if it's just me, but I fly in and out of Phoenix if it's Joe and I.
Ah, okay, very good. And is my audio and color and everything sufficient?
I think you look fabulous.
All right, it's not too bright.
Mm-mm.
Okay, great. I can't tell on this end. Bill, do you have any more light for you, Bill? Because it's just lighting your right side primarily.
Well, that's what it's going to be the majority of the time.
Jay, that's his good side. We try to hide the bad
That's my
side.
best side right there.
That is his
All
best
right.
side.
Well, it sort of has an orange hue or a reddish hue to
Yeah.
it. So anyway,
Yep.
no sweat.
Smooth lighting.
So Beth, in addition to the fellows who we hope are on, you've been pushing this so much. Do you think we'll have a few folks from all your promotions?
Typically people it takes till about 5 or 8:15 to come on. Like they're just gonna come on right now. But it can be breast cancer survivors, it can be breast fellows, it could be other surgeons, it could be other
Okay.
people that follow me from Survivorship. But pretty much you're mostly gonna have breast cancer survivors, I think, because I kind of put you out there as the exercise oncology guru. So my office manager, Deb, is in the upper corner. She's there because she knows the importance of exercise. Edie, who is our Pilates instructor for the foundation, she's on there.
Uh-huh.
And it's a good group of people.
Well, fabulous. I'm really thrilled to be here. I really am.
And Bill, you have another 4 minutes. You got to wait till 5:05. Christine Riley's on there. Ann's on there. Eileen's always on. There's Maria and Penny's on. Now we're getting like 2 pages of people, so it's nice that the pages are increasing.
Yeah, I see we've got at least 20 folks on, so that's great.
And the important thing is we record it. I'll edit it, we record it, and that way we can give it back to, I'll put subtitles and stuff on, and we can give it back to all of the survivors to be able to watch it whenever.
Yep. Oh, that's great. Fabulous. I just checked that I can share my screen, so I am going to show some slides, Beth, that you've seen in the past, a few of them, and just to make some talking points. And then if we have time, I'll also put on the website just to show people what the website looks like, okay?
Fantastic.
All righty.
It's about giving great resources. So, Bill, I know you have to be patient. You got 3 more minutes. You guys, it's going to be worth it. Dr. Harness might have thought I was crazy and left the reservation back in 2004 when I gave my first talk at ASBRS about an integrated approach to cancer care. But now he's leading the charge, and he's got the flagpole out in front of everybody else, and he's whipping all the other surgeons into shape.
Oh, Beth. Yeah. All righty, if you say so, right. Oh, Beth.
All right, Bill, I'm going to shut up and let you take over. How's that?
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll give it 2 more minutes, Jay, and then we'll get going.
The only other suggestion I have for you, Bill, can you bring your camera down a little bit?
I'm not set. I mean, I've got my whole studio, but that's not tonight. Tonight it's all about you.
No, I know that, but I just was trying to have you look like the superstar you are, especially
Ah,
when you
no.
do all the recordings, of which of the bunch of them I've got on my website. So
Well,
anyway, no sweat.
we'll give it another minute here. Yeah, I was sitting in lunch with Beth and I said, I thought you were leaving today. She goes, I am in 3 hours.
Oh, Lord. Uh, so, Bill, do you want to have some Q&A between us, or how else do you want to do this?
I'll let you finish up, and then we can absolutely turn it over um, to questions and see
Okay.
what
So
all
you're going to
comes
do
in.
the intro, then it's
Yep,
basically I'll come on
yep,
and then I'll do my talk and then we'll hopefully I can switch sharing screen and then we'll see what we do for Q&A. No problem.
yep.
No
Sounds
problem.
perfect.
Got it.
Sounds
Okay.
perfect. All right, Jay, I got five after, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll get this started. So, it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Jay Harness, who is a dear friend of mine and Beth's. But to put you more in awe of the gentleman, he is the past president of the American Society of Breast Surgeons, the past president of the American Association of Endocrine Surgeons, the past president of Breast Surgery International. He's authored over 100 scientific articles and book chapters. He's the lead editor of 3 breast surgery textbooks, co-founder and medical director of Breast Cancer Answers, which if you haven't checked it out, it's breastcanceranswers.com. He's the founder of cancerfitness.org, which hopefully he'll talk more about today. He's a founding member and co-chair of the International Society of Exercise Oncology, and an all-around incredible human being. So, Jay, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. And I'm going to start by asking you, with that immense surgical background, how you ended up getting involved in exercise oncology.
Oh, Dr. Bill Scarlett, what a privilege it is to be with you as always. Well, you haven't shared that you and I and Beth used to teach nipple-sparing mastectomy courses together. We are deeply bonded, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be with you and Beth and all the others who are joining us this evening. You know, the backstory is, Bill, I stumbled into this area about 7 or 8 years ago. And somebody said, have you ever heard of a lady by the name of Andrea Leonard, who started what's called CETI, Cancer Exercise Training Institute? I said, nope, I don't know her. Got to know her and was just completely thunderstruck by the amount of science that's out there that I'll talk about when I start showing my slides, and thought to myself, wait a minute. I've been at this field a long time. Why in the world don't I know about the science that's here? And the answer to that question is it had been done since the late 1980s, early 1990s by absolutely outstanding PhD researchers in the world of exercise physiology, kinesiology, even sports medicine. And as I'll show in my slide, up through last year, Bill, they've published about 30,000 publications, the majority of which we weren't aware of. One thing led to another. I got involved then in meeting the top PhD researchers. And the next thing I knew was I was deeply involved. And I've excommunicated the word aging from my vocabulary. I talk about successful progression through life, and as part of that journey is continuing to have purpose. So I'm thrilled to have purpose in trying to educate the our colleagues, as well as cancer survivors and patients, about this amazing world of exercise oncology. So am I off to the races, Bill? Should I start talking?
You are
I've
absolutely
got a
set, sir.
right. I've got a thumbs up from you. So let me share my screen. Now let's share this, and let's go to the slideshow, and here we are. So as Bill has been so kind with his introduction, I was most recently on the staff of Providence St. Joseph Hospital in Orange, California, as well as Northern Inyo Hospital in the Eastern Sierras. This is what I was alluding to, folks. This slide is courtesy of Catherine Schmitz, PhD, who in the United States is probably, along with Lee Jones, our top two researchers. So I thank Katie for this slide. So as you can see in the slide, we go back here to about 1990. We got all these increasing clinical trials, randomized clinical trials. And up through last year, as you can barely see here in the corner, there's been 3,000 of them, leading to about 30,000 publications. And so what I want everybody to realize here, that medicine is evidence-based. And the evidence here is simply overwhelming. And Bill, I've said to you and others, if we had this much science for a new surgical procedure in our world of breast cancer, my goodness gracious, it would have been a standard of care, certainly 10 or maybe 15 years ago. So the science here is irrefutable. The problem is most of our colleagues are unaware of the hardcore science. So people often ask me, GJ, what is this exercise oncology business? And here's one of the best ways to think of this. Think of it as an adjunct. In other words, in addition to regular therapies, think of it as an adjunctive therapeutic approach to cancer patients coming out of these 3,000 clinical trials. And the results from these trials demonstrate a moderate to strong evidence of the positive impact of exercise on patients' fatigue, their anxiety, their depression, particularly during quality of life and physical function, particularly during active treatment, sleep, bone health, and certainly help to thwart lymphedema developing. Please remember that exercise oncology programs are evidence-based programs of supervised, individualized exercise training programs done on site, or now since the pandemic, probably over 50% of them can be done virtually. So that's sort of the definition of what exercise oncology is. Now, people ask me all the time, well, is there a standard, Jay, for all this? And the number, and what I'm going to show you here, Bill, is what's considered to be a national and an international standard. And that's 150 minutes a week. And I really want to emphasize this, of moderate intensity activity. This is not training, folks, for a 10K race. This is not training for the Ironman contest. And what's a good definition of this? Well, how about walking briskly 5 days a week for 30 minutes, hopefully getting your heart rate up above 100, and then combining that with a minimum of 2 days of resistance exercise. And that can be resistance bands that you're doing at home, or free weights, or whatever, or working at a gym or whatever. But as I'll make apparent to you, the muscles, in addition to the cardiovascular system, are really important here. Now, in our world of breast cancer, we have what's known as the NAPBC, the National Accreditation Program for Breast Centers. This is the Good Housekeeping seal of approval of breast center programs. And starting a year and a half ago, the standards now include 4 new standards that talk about documenting the policies on exercise as well as physical assessment. One of the things for the fellows who are on this call tonight is to ask the medical oncologists you deal with, if they're aware of this ASCO guideline that came out, I think 3 or more years ago, probably closer to 4 years ago, and I want to read this to you. Quote, oncology providers, that's all of us, should recommend regular aerobic and resistance exercise during active treatment to mitigate the side effects of the cancer treatment. As I'll point out later on, think of exercise oncology programs as being a continuum of care, starting at the medical center level, including folks having neoadjuvant chemotherapy, as well as then after the medical center component out in the fitness industry. But this standard, both of these standards here are really at the medical center level, okay? So, Bill, if you take all of these clinical trials that have been done in breast cancer, which, by the way, is about 65% of all the data that's been accumulated over this last 35 years, and you melt it all down and look at what's the impact of these moderate exercise programs on the post-diagnosis physical activity of cancer patients. And here's some really important numbers. Cancer-specific mortality is reduced by 31%. Keep that number in mind because I want to talk more about that with another clinical trial in a couple of minutes. It can lower the recurrence of breast cancer by 22%. But here's the really biggest number that I want everybody to please remember. Lowering what's called all-cause mortality, meaning dying from things other than your breast cancer or other cancers. And that's a big number, as you can see, 41%. And the leading cancer killer, actually, of breast cancer patients is actually cardiovascular disease. Now, here's some important data from Maple Tree Cancer Alliance, which I've been involved with for the past 5 to 6 years. I'm the chief medical officer there. I do this on a voluntary basis. But Maple Tree has organized 12-week programs that are individualized, again, done in person or on site. And here's the cumulative data over the past 14 to 15 years, Bill, on a little over 20,000 patients. And this is during active treatment and the results of these programs. An increase in quality of life, a little over 62%. An increase in cardiovascular endurance, nearly 17%. An increase in muscular endurance, nearly 28%. Increase in flexibility, right around 28%. But here's a really big number, almost 76 increase in feeling more positive. In other words, the impact of lowering depression, of being involved with a group, just a variety of things. This is a really big number. And then also when you're involved in these programs, nearly 59% having feelings of more support. So again, besides all these clinical trials, here's a database, prospective database of a little over 20,000 patients, which includes all cancers, by the way, not just breast cancers in the data that I just showed you. In other words, these are everybody, breast cancer, colorectal, and other cancers as well, prostate, et cetera. Last year was probably the biggest pivotal event in the last 35 years of the history of exercise oncology. This trial, known as the Structured Exercise After Adjuvant Chemotherapy for Colon Cancer, was presented at ASCO on June 1st last year and simultaneously published in the New England Journal of Medicine. This is also known by everybody as the Challenge Clinical Trial. Came primarily from Australia, who, by the way, are the world leaders. Kerry and his group are in Western Canada and Alberta, but it was, as you'll see in the next slide, a multi-centered, international, randomized phase 3 trial. And it investigated the impact, and here's, Bill, a really key term, structured physical activity program. Or to put it another way, we know that handing people brochures that they ought to do exercise doesn't work, but referring patients to structured physical activity programs does. Anyway, this is on colon cancer patients who completed their surgery and adjuvant chemotherapy. The study focused on high-risk stage 2 colon cancer patients who did need adjuvant chemotherapy, as well as stage 3 patients who routinely get adjuvant chemotherapy. All eligible participants completed their adjuvant chemo. The structured program had 442 folks, and this was 3 years of behavioral support intervention designed to achieve the equivalent of brisk walking 3 to 4 times a week for 45 to 60 minutes, and also included supervised sessions in years 2 and 3 that were home-based or whatever. So in other words, they remained structured, but they were monitored off-site after the first year. That was then compared to a control group called the Health Education Control Group of 447 participants who received standard survivorship health education materials, in other words, brochures, but no structured exercise. The primary endpoint was disease-free survival, defined as no cancer recurrence, no new cancer, or death from any cause. Then the secondary endpoints included overall survival, the measurement of physical activity levels, fitness, health-related quality of life, adverse events. And here is a really spectacular median follow-up of nearly 8 years, okay? And by the way, from the beginning of this program to this report at ASCO took 20 years. The disease-free survival was 80.3% in the exercise group versus 73.9% in the control group, or 28% fewer cancer recurrences or all-cause recurrences. But here was the big number. The overall 8-year overall survival rate was 90.3% for the exercise group versus 83.2% for the control group. Look at this number, Bill, 39% fewer deaths. You know, if you look at just the impact of adjuvant chemotherapy in colon cancer, they can barely even reach this number. So this was really spectacular. This study then was felt to be a landmark study, really demonstrating that structured physical activity as a potentially life-saving intervention. I watched the live streaming of this at ASCO, Bill, and I think the audience was around 10 to 12,000 people. They got over a 5-minute standing ovation after this was presented. That's how big an impact. Now, remember, I said this was also then presented online on the New England Journal of Medicine, but part of not only the online issue of the journal, but in the print one was this editorial by Linda Irwin, PhD, who basically said, extending cancer survival with exercise, time for oncology to act. That's us. And as I said a little bit ago, please remember we're talking about these programs as a continuum of care, that they're a structured program. So then the $64 question is, how do we implement them in practice? Well, one of the biggest things we have to do, because here are the barriers, Bill, is to educate our own oncology colleagues. I would say that probably greater than 80% of the medical oncologists like us, or excuse me, the medical oncologists, the surgical oncologists like us, and the radiation oncologists are simply aware of this hard science. We want to educate cancer patients and their families. The biggest barrier right now is reimbursement, which is still being very actively worked out at the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And another potential barrier at the medical center level is having the space and equipment for a program, but typically these are small, But if a cancer center sets up a program, they can refer patients offsite, as we'll talk about here in a minute. So there have been these barriers, but we're actively working on them. So how would you start a program at, let's say, your medical center? Well, one of the very first things is to educate our colleagues and to create out of that physician champions. The physician champions can then be instrumental in designing pilot studies that could be done at your institution. What are the components of that? And then most hospitals have foundations or their external grant sources that could certainly fund these initial pilots. And then typically, once these initial pilots are done and often then repeated, they can then be continued by either the hospital foundation, an external funding source, or simply blended into the overhead of the cancer center itself. So understanding the science and becoming physician champions, looking into established providers of exercise programs like Live Strong out in the YMCA's, which typically focuses on after active treatment out in the community, or groups like Maple Tree Cancer Alliance and others. And then obviously getting advocacy groups involved to help you start things going, and finding foundations that are interested in doing this. So Bill, we know, and you're a member of the American Society of Breast Surgeons, we're a group of early adopters, and we want to have us be the champions. And as they say at Nike, let's just do it. You mentioned briefly the establishment of the International Society of Exercise Oncology. Here is their website, exercise-oncology. It's a .org up in Canada. They're working to make exercise oncology programs not only as important for prevention and treatment and survivorship, but to make it a worldwide phenomenon. Here's my website, which I'll attempt to go through with you in just a minute, which is cancerfitness.org. And then finally, Bill, if we're going to do this, we've got to walk the talk, right, Dr. Scarlett? So here's your buddy Jay walking the talk. I just want people to know that I do this. I do an average around 200 minutes a week of this modern intensity aerobic exercise, and I also then try and do 2 to 3 days a week of resistance training. Okay. So Bill, maybe we could just open it up for a few minutes for any questions that people have. They could unmute and ask their questions or whatever. And then as we wrap up, I'll actually take people through the website if I can share my screen. But Bill, any thoughts or comments that you have, my friend?
Yeah, just a couple, Jay, and thank you very much for again sharing the data. Every time I listen to you, there's more data, which is great because people are adding to it. But can you talk a little bit more about Maple Tree Alliance? Because this is a nonprofit that you're involved with that really is doing a lot of research, both in the States and internationally. And I'd love to have you touch on that just a little bit more before we get into the questions.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Bill. So mapletreecanceralliance.org, that's the website, was started by Dr. Karen Wonders about 15 years or so ago. Karen's a PhD in exercise physiology. When we've been at ASCO, people have said, oh, you must be from Canada. You call it Maple Tree. No, Karen named it Maple Tree in honor of her grandfather, who is from Pennsylvania, who after Karen finished getting her PhD in exercise physiology, her grandfather was diagnosed with colon cancer. And of course, back then, they were all told him, here's your treatment, here's your chemo, here's this, here's that, but please go home and rest. And Karen said, no, we got to get you moving, even if we're talking about walking around the house or whatever. So she got actively involved with her grandfather with his colon cancer diagnosis. And in honor of him, named the Cancer Alliance Maple Tree. Also, her original concept was to get more groups involved in diet and nutrition, and we do have some links there at Maple Tree and other advocacy groups, etc. Maple Tree currently, Bill, provides certified exercise oncology specialists to over 80 locations in the United States. Her specialists are bachelor level graduates of exercise physiology programs, kinesiology programs, and even sports medicine programs, who are then additionally certified to work with cancer patients. Their role is to create an individualized prescription based on what kind of cancer it is, where they are in their treatment, getting a handle on their limitations, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said earlier, after that initial assessment and creating individualized programs, the folks, the trainers, can then work virtually or on site, either one-on-one or in groups. Then in addition, what Karen does with Maple Tree, she's now, I think, exported exercise oncology programs to well over 20 some locations globally. And her concept there is to help folks overseas in all these different countries to set up their own exercise oncology programs. So I would, as a provider, I think it's fair to say that Karen's not only the national leader of the United States, but also the global leader as well. But thanks for asking that question. And the website again is mapletreecanceralliance.org.
Thanks, Jay. And I have had the privilege of meeting Karen on multiple occasions and chatting with her, and a little envious with some of what she's doing, because there are other countries that are seeing the benefit before our own and are putting it into their national health care. Again, great work that
you know what, Bill, you're spot on about that. That is our goal. And as I mentioned, the Aussies are the global leaders. Their ASCO is called COSA, Clinical Oncology Society or whatever of Australia. I think it's 2018. They made it a standard of adjunctive care for all cancer patients in Australia. And their government has also funded it. And what we believe, there's a tremendous amount of momentum going on in this area. It's not only exercise, but also nutrition. It's also about lifestyle medicine. We had some major sessions at the recently held American Society of Breast Surgeons meeting in Seattle. And I walked out of that meeting, as you know, you've been to it multiple times. We end up with well over 2,000 at the meeting. The buzz was everywhere about lifestyle medicine, about diet, but particularly about exercise. So thanks for bringing that up.
Absolutely. Well, I'll turn it over to questions, and if not, I'll pepper you with some more of my own.
Well, and then if we have a chance, I'll also take you through the Cancer Fitness website, where there's some videos by a guy who I think is on the screen with me, that Dr. Scarlett guy. Okay. Anyway, let's open it up for questions, okay? We've got 24 people on the call, and knowing that I know that people are there, I cannot imagine for a moment that there aren't some questions of people who either raise their hand or unmute or whatever. There's got to be some folks out there among the 24 that have some questions.
Well, I'll keep peppering you in the meantime, Jay. Maybe they'll think of some. So,
Okay.
When we talk about structured exercise, it's easy for us, and obviously, walking is the easiest thing for all of us to do. But I know that in the studies that have been done, it's been a combination, right, of aerobic and strength training, and that's really where that structured aspect comes in, right? Because if you're if you're 85 and going through colon cancer, it's different than if you're 30 and going through breast cancer. So can you just elaborate a little bit on the importance of that structured aspect as opposed to just going to the Y and doing it yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. And we don't recommend that, by the way. We do recommend that you get online with us or whatever. So there's all sorts of different models here. The most important thing is that, as an example, Mapletree uses an algorithm once a patient is referred, and this algorithm helps to determine should somebody be referred to physical therapy, because frankly, they're so debilitated by their treatment that the last thing they can do right now is start going out and walking briskly, okay? And that in fact, what they need is to be involved in a physical therapy program. We presented a poster at ASBRS on this very subject that compared those being referred to physical therapy who then come to a baseline and then get into the exercise program versus those going straight into an exercise program. And needless to say, those who start off with physical therapy actually do better. And so at medical centers, that would be our recommendation, that if you don't have your own program, refer the patient to physical therapy to do a baseline assessment to see what patients are capable of doing. And then a referral could be made to, let's say, if not Mapletree, then to a referral potentially offsite if somebody's at that state, okay? And so it really is, you really bring up an important point. Just don't go out and start doing this cold, please. And by the way, at Mapletree, we insist that we have physician clearance for people even to be involved straight off into, let's say, a Mapletree program. And the same thing should be true and live with the Live Strong programs at the Y to be referred there as well. So yeah, absolutely. Talk with your medical oncologist is usually the one doing the referral often, or even after radiation therapy, the radiation oncologist. Clearly, there has to be a short-term recovery from all your therapies, but we do want you exercising during your therapy. Now, your question also led to something that's critically important here. We've got 35 years worth of outstanding improved clinical outcomes. So the question then is, what in the world is going on at the physiologic level in the body, giving us these improved clinical outcomes? And frankly, that's where the research is now focusing. We've got a ton of all these improved clinical outcomes. We need more about the science at the molecular level. And what has emerged so far are two areas. One, muscles. Every time we moderately exercise, briskly walking, resistance training, whatever, our muscles are releasing things called myokines. MYO, meaning muscle kines, meaning proteins. These myokines have a variety of functions, one of which is anti-inflammatory, one of which is to stimulate the cardiovascular system, central nervous system, respiratory system, etc. There was a phenomenal clinical trial done out of Canada where they took the serum of prostate cancer patients who were in the wakeful watching group. In other words, they didn't have surgery, but they monitored their PSA levels. And this clinical trial is really amazing. They then randomized these prostate wakeful watching patients into two groups, the control group, of course, and the exercise group. And what happened is they followed the groups over the few years that the study went on, is the PSA levels in the control group stayed the same or started drifting up. Where on the other hand, the PSAs in the exercise group not only were the same, but started going down. Then what they did is they had the serum from both groups. And they took the plasma serum and added the serum to prostate cancer cells being grown in culture. And in the control group, when they added the serum, There was no impact on the growth of the cancer cells, either up or down. However, when they added the serum to the exercise group, the growth of the prostate cancer cells in culture slowed down. So it appears, at least in prostate cancer and probably in other cancers, including breast, that there can be a direct impact on the microenvironment, slowing down any residual cancer cells remaining in the body. And more science is coming out on this. The other system being impacted is the immune system. Mm-hmm. All right. And we know from the COVID pandemic that those who were in better shape did better with the COVID virus, et cetera, or any other viruses that we would get. And what they're finding in the cancer patients is there's an uptick in T helper lymphocytes, macrophages, and other important anti-cancer aspects of the immune system. And so that's being studied. And part of the thinking here is if the future of most cancer treatments is going to be targeted immunotherapies, does it make sense then that we would enhance the immune system before we give the targeted therapies? And those clinical trials are just getting started, okay?
And Jay, I remember you shared an article with me. This has got to be over a year ago now, but specifically looking at the immune system in breast cancer patients, and it was bicycling. It was a stationary bicycle, and they had them ride for 6 minutes, and they drew their blood before and they drew their blood afterwards, and the immune system was revved up just in 6 minutes. And so, I mean, again, I'm old enough to remember when I moved to Philly, they were doing the Wiser trial, right? And all my patients were interested because if you participated in the Wiser trial, which is one of the first exercise trials looking at breast cancer recurrence, you got to keep the treadmill. So it was a free treadmill if you were on that limb of the study. So all my patients wanted to be a part of that. But to your point, Jay, we were just looking at, well, let's follow these people for 5 years and see who has their cancer come back and who doesn't, right? So we knew that exercise helped decrease recurrence rates. But now we're actually digging more into the science and looking at the immune system and specifically what is it that exercise is doing. So it's very fascinating.
I'm about to, I think tomorrow or later this week, Bill, or the early part of next week, about to post on LinkedIn and also at Cancer Fitness, a written blog about microRNAs that are being released with exercise that have an impact on the microenvironment of cancer cells. So you're absolutely spot on. Stay tuned, okay?
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to mention, Jay, and then I'd love to have you kind of walk us through the website, but so much of what we're the science we're focused on, which is great, and it's hardcore science, is looking at what's happening to the muscle as we build it and what's happening to the immune system as we use it. But we have well documented the fact that exercise is so good for our mental health. In fact, there are multiple studies that show that moderate exercise 3 times a week is as good, if not better, than some of our SSRI antidepressants. So, it's a win-win-win when we're getting people that less symptoms, that their body's doing better, and they're having better mental health. So again, more and more we're seeing these amazing articles.
Yep. Well, my friend Ariel's got her hand up. So Ariel, do you want to unmute and suck it to us?
Oh, wait, can you hear me?
Yes,
yes,
okay, perfect. Hi guys, my name is Ariel. I just had a quick question on insurance reimbursements. Would you be able to elaborate on kind of where things are at with that and kind of future projections on what could potentially be?
Yep, happy to do that. Thanks for the question, Ariel. So this is the big issue. Karen Wonders, Katie Schmitz, and others, the American Cancer Society, ASCO, American College of Sports Medicine, all these groups are focused on the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services in Washington. Before the Trump administration came on board, we were working very closely with CMS to have a national coverage determination, submitted a proposal, went through 2 drafts of it. And then the final word from CMS was to come right after the inauguration of President Trump. And unfortunately, at that point, everything blew up. CMS it's just upside down. And so the point is, but the good news is everybody's working on it. And all I can say is stay tuned. We're working on different strategies. The most important is the reimbursement at the medical center levels. And we're also then hoping to see what could be done out in the fitness industry. And I'm very optimistic on this. Now, is it going to be this calendar year? Probably not. Could it be next calendar year? Yes. Also, I want you to be aware of what's called the Commission on Cancer. See, it's known affectionately to all of us as the COC. And we're working on a new standard at the COC that would include exercise. And again, the COC is the good housekeeping seal of approval for all cancer centers in the United States, not just breast, but all cancer centers. And Bill, I think it also extends up into Canada as well. So please, Ariel, thanks for asking the question. We're working as hard as we can on this, but we're optimistic we're going to get it. And most recently, one of the first insurance plans in the country to make this available is actually the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I just learned this recently. Katie Schmitz has been driving things there. So slowly but surely, we're working on it. Okay, but great question.
Yeah, and Ariel, the only other thing that I would add for people currently being treated, physical therapy is always covered by all insurances, as is lymphedema therapy. So those are 2 places to start, and it can be that you can get guidance there as to what exercises to be doing, or maybe some of the ones, especially if you're just post treatment, maybe you shouldn't be doing. But that's at least a place to start getting it. And I too am hopeful. One of the things that I think we would all agree is so important to our cancer care is our nurse navigation. And for the last 5 years, that has been something that was not covered by insurances, and it is just in the last 12 months, 14 months or so, started to be covered by insurances. So there is hope that, as these things are becoming evident that how important they are, that insurances will start, following suit. And again, UPMC is leading the way. They do have their own insurance, obviously their own health facilities also, but it's a good sign.
Yep. No, Bill, we're really spot on and bringing up the nurse navigators thing as well. Well, listen, we've got just a few more minutes to go here. I'm going to attempt to share my screen once again. And let's see. Let me go here and see what I can do. And let me see if I share this, if this will get me to where I want to be. Let me do this. And nope, I didn't have any luck doing it that way. I had the website up and running, Bill. And let me just give one more. We can edit this out later on if I'm at all successful. Okay, I've got an idea. Let me close this. Okay, let me stop this. So just stay tuned as Jay stumbles his, I don't want to leave the meeting. So let me cancel that. And let me go. Is everybody being entertained? I hope as I'm.
We've all lived through the pain, Jay, so we're all feeling it.
As I struggle around trying to figure out how to get this other thing up, what I want to do is to try and. All right, and I keep coming back to this, and I can't seem to exit out of here. So anyway, Bill, it appears that I'm not going to be successful in showing. Let me just try one other thing just right here. So that didn't work. That doesn't work, and I don't see another connection to do it. So I'm going to stop and we'll call it a day. I wasn't able to share the website. No sweat. Okay.
So can you give us just a brief overview, Jay, if you were giving me the elevator pitch on what is on the website?
Yeah. So thank you, Bill. So at cancerfitness.org, what we have there is a detailed explanation of the history and the evolution of exercise oncology programs. It also gives people ideas about how to get started besides working with their medical centers. We also then have a written blog page of the things we're posting 2 to 3 times a week, which gives you far more information. And then we have our video page where the videos are. And Dr. Bill Scarlett has wonderful videos of his own that are posted there in addition to the ones that we've done. So, but anyway, that's the story. And Dorothy B is up there. And if there's any other questions, let's go from there. Bill, I think we can almost call it a wrap.
Well, Jay, I thank you again for taking the time to run over this. I would encourage everyone to check out those websites. I do know that Maple Tree has also been working locally with our Hope Lodge, and
Yes,
through the American Cancer Society, they have videos for people to be able to watch exercise videos that they can watch and do while they're at the Hope Lodge. Again, there are some ways that we can reach out locally, but if you check out those websites, there's a lot of examples and different things that they have available. And again, on Jay's website, there's a lot of information which I think is phenomenal.
And just Bill, thank you. Bill, you're better at this than I am. I forgot to mention the Hope Lodge connection. Maple Tree has a wonderful connection with the Hope Lodges of working with people while they're at a Hope Lodge. Trainers work with them while they're there, get them up and going. And Maple Tree also has videos that people can subscribe to who are out and done with their active treatment or even in active treatment. But again, I always want to encourage to work with your medical oncologist and your treatment team. And Bill, I want to take this opportunity to thank you and Beth and the others who were here tonight. It's absolutely been a true privilege on my part to be with you.
Well, again, Jay, it's our privilege, and thank you for taking the time to share this all with us. And hopefully, again, it'll just keep, we'll keep getting more papers and more education, and hopefully, then it will become a standard in the United States. That would be fantastic to see.
Very good. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
you
so much. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you. You too.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
So, Bill, I think it's my job to end the meeting for all, it appears, since I'm...
Yeah, I'm trying to stop the recording and it's not letting me. So I think you have to...
Yeah, I think that's what Beth did when she... Yeah. And I believe the recording will stop and will be uploaded to the cloud for you guys to be able to play with. And
yeah,
Beth, are you still there? I see you're there. Beth, any other final thoughts?
Oh, I'm there. Hold on. Sorry. I'm at my friend's house. I'm only in town for 2 days, so I'm here for dinner. Can you see the beautiful view?
Yes, ma'am. Nice. You certainly can, Beth.
Yep. You did a great job. I was listening in the back.
Okay, thanks. And I believe when I end, it will automatically be uploaded to the cloud. That's right.
Yep.
Send it to
it. Will. It'll go to the cloud, and then I'll pull it down, and I'm going to put words to it. I'll annotate it and cut it and make a beginning slide and ending slide, and then we'll post it. And I'll give it to you. It may not be for 36 hours, but I will get it back to you.
Well, the other thing in the middle where I fumbled around trying to share my website, please edit that out.
I can actually probably insert your website in there because I am that good.
Oh, you know what? Howard, I love it. Yeah. If you would, that would be fabulous. Okay.
I will get your website in there. Okay.
All right. Very good. All right, guys. Love
Thank you
all.
so much, Jay.
Take care.
All right. Thanks again, Jay.
You bet. Bye.